All right, I am here with Typhon, the latest person voted out of online survival for Typhon. Back to back weeks of votes, which was tough, I'm sure. But how are you, Typhon?
I'm doing pretty good. We were talking about what it was like watching it from an outside perspective, and just it was a rush, that's for sure.
Looking back at it now, how do you feel about your first team?
I we definitely took it a lot more seriously than we probably should have. Almost everybody was on edge, and it was a lot of fun for what it was.
I will say your team made for some good TV, I think, even though you were all playing hard, which is always a good thing, I think.
Oh yeah. Um, it was like I said, seeing it from an outside perspective, it definitely shone a lot of light on some situations that were brought into question, but I regret nothing. And I think it's safe to say everybody else does too.
Yeah. Um, where do you think you went wrong on that team? Because I know we all have our speculations. Some of the viewers say on us on the podcast talk about it, but what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, excuse me. One person had mentioned that I may have been a little too outspoken, that I just kind of took charge of the conversations as they went. I don't see it that way, but maybe I'm wrong.
Do you think that made you perceived as like a leader? Kind of like some of you were perceiving Muggs as a leader, some of people perceived you as a leader because of that.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Mary or if it was Ashley, but somebody did mention that there it was kind of like a leadership quality. And I try to put a stop to that, like, okay, we need to fix this right now. But
Do you think it was too
no,
late
I,
by that
I,
point?
I think it might have been, yeah.
Yeah, that always cracked me up. That conversation with Dar when Dar was like, "You're like the leader," and you kind of like freak out and say,
Yeah,
"We need to put a stop to that."
yeah, it was Darstar. Okay.
You didn't feel that way about yourself at the time. You didn't think anybody would think you as a leader.
You know, I kind of have a bit of a masochistic personality in that, I don't have a very high opinion of myself. Maybe others do, but I'm just I'm just cursed to never see it. So even if people do see like a leadership quality in one aspect or another, I'm always gonna say no.
Um, Another thing people talk about your game is you. Did you think? Do you think you threw out a lot of names over the course of your few rounds on that team?
With a game like this, names are gonna be thrown around constantly. Um, maybe I did it a little too carelessly. I will be the first to admit that. Um, Being in a game for the first time, like your nerves are going to get the better of you. You're not exactly sure how you're supposed to go about this. At
Yeah, I
the
think
end of the day, what happens happens, and you got to stick by it.
no, that's very fair. I mean, it is your first time. You have to just adapt to the team you got, and the team you
Yeah.
got was pretty hardcore. Looking back on your teammates, is there anyone that surprises you on that team?
Um, I'll admit, like, something you can kind of see like throughout the game as it was happening was I would have like a little notebook, kind of on my lap, just trying to figure out what everybody would be like and everything like that.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't. I well, I That's kind of a lie. I did kind of figure that that was going to be a bit of a target on my back
The notebook.
somewhat soon, but no, it played out pretty well. It wasn't such a big surprise. I try to stick to this mindset of hope for the best, expect the worst. So
What do you think went wrong with the alliance of you, Mary, and Tabitha? Why do you think Tabitha voted against you? Because
Maybe,
it seemed like you two were connecting quite a bit on the game.
yeah, it really did, and that was, I'll admit, that was definitely a bit of a shock. That was definitely one of them. Um, I don't know. Maybe it comes back around to the fact that maybe I was a little too outspoken, just like names being thrown everywhere. So maybe that was something probably a bit more avoidable.
As Muggsy would say, do you think Tabitha's two-faced?
No, I mean, this game is all about like backstabbing and being two-faced. I remember, I think it was episode 2. It was either episode 2 or 3. It's a healthy level of paranoia no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way around that.
Let's go back to your conversation with Muggsy when she tried to call you out. Watching that back, how you feeling about that conversation?
Oh, God's be good. Like, I mean, I have to applaud her for like being that bold about it. I mean, she may not have been wrong. Um, oh, excuse me. It's kind of funny because that was definitely one episode where my mom and sister were actually kind of off to the side, and she did notice how she was strong, she was determined, but at the same time, she was very unpredictable. So they taken to calling her Maelstrom Muggsy, which was oddly fitting at that point. Nobody could figure her out, and I honestly didn't expect that from her either.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a shock. She came into that chat pretty guns blazing.
Yeah, she really did.
Do you think you underestimated Dar? Because I feel like at one point you said that she's not really taking the game that
Yeah.
seriously, but he's playing.
Yeah, he played pretty good. I will give him that. Because I remember for a while I had him pinned as like, he just wasn't taking the game seriously or anything like that. Um, he didn't really seem like he cared if he had any alliances or anything, but he had me fooled. Props to him.
When you were voted out, if you remember, had you stayed in the game, had you survived this third round, who would you
Mm.
blame for your elimination?
Oh, you know, at the end of the day, I would definitely have to say Tabitha. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm not mad about that, but like, if we're gonna be forming alliances and everything like that, and then I just hear like my name is gonna be put out, especially by somebody who I'm in an alliance with, that's gonna start throwing some shade.
Yeah, I mean, if that was me, I probably would have felt the same way.
Yeah.
Now, you were voted off of that team. Go on to Legends. Coming onto Legends,
Ooh.
what went wrong there? Is it just because they're just so tight knit?
Yeah. I could tell just off the bat, like even with them being a bit more cut loose as they were still tight enough to understand like, okay, yeah, we got one more person, but can we really trust them? Um, and that was kind of my first impression with certain players, especially like Jason. Um, he didn't really take on the leadership role, but he could definitely have a lot of influence if he really wanted to.
What was your plan going on to that? Because it seems like it was just to be a very good team player. Maybe you learned from your first tribe that you couldn't be, I guess, throwing out too many names. But was that your approach?
Yeah, I mean, starting with a new team, I'm basically back at square one. Even if I could have like one or two friends to kind of help back me up a little bit, and I think I mentioned it during elimination that night as well. Was like coming from the enemy team, yeah, it does throw a lot of shade, but it does kind of benefit you in that, um, I kind of got a little bit more information on these guys, so maybe it would benefit you. But at the end of the day, they didn't bite. So
Do you think they should have?
I think it would have helped them a little bit, but I will admit they were smart. They were smart for not keeping me around.
There was some comments from viewers last night in the chat. In the comments, they thought you should have actually played more like your first team and maybe throw out Susan's name harder. Do you think you didn't throw Susan's name out hard enough?
I I will say, like, maybe I could have thrown it out a little bit harder, but my hope is, like, even if I didn't throw it out as hard as I could have, there's still that little bit of doubt. There's still that little whisper in the back of everybody's mind that may just do enough damage in the future, you know?
Now, you saw Riazo, who you never really got to meet because you guys switched teams again. How did you think of him going into your old team last night?
Could you repeat that one more time?
Do you think Riazo did a good job going into your old team, or how do you feel like he's going to fare on that team?
I don't know. I will give Riazo the fact that he's very charismatic. So I seriously doubt it would be that hard for him to make the same connections that a lot of us did. But that's gonna kind of depend on like Tabitha and Mary, especially somebody like Ashley. Like she I'm very eager to see what happens next. Yeah.
Why do you make that face about Ashley?
There were some characters that kind of threw me for a loop. Not necessarily in a bad way, but Ashley was definitely one of them. For a while, we were actually doing a reaction video with a lot of the contestants. Love them to death. I love that we have that opportunity to um, reconnect and just kind of watch everything from an outside perspective and just laugh at each other and laugh at ourselves, really. um, and I always pegged Ashley for like kind of a free spirit, and then there was one instance where she was talking about like ducks on the pond, so to speak. I didn't expect her to be as thoughtful of her game plan as she was.
So you think she's playing hard, or she's a strategist?
Yeah, she's definitely playing hardball. There's a phrase for it. It escapes me right now, but it's not playing hard to get. What is it? I'm drawing a blank right now.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Like I don't want to say playing dumb. Like that just sounds rude, but that's more or less what it is, you know?
Playing for keeps? I don't know. That's the phrase I'm looking for.
I don't know. Crap, this is gonna bug me all night. No, and then
go ahead.
Sorry. And then like we had talked about Darstar, like he definitely threw me for a loop, took it a lot more seriously than he let on as well. I guess playing dumb is the term for it, but that just sounds rude to me. I don't know.
Well, I mean, some people do come into these games playing dumb and then
Yeah.
really pulling some strings behind the scenes.
Oh yeah. And
Well,
it's to them if they're able to do it effectively,
True. Well, any final thoughts you want to talk about on your episodes?
Well, I gotta say, I can't wait to see what happens. This is gonna be very interesting going forward.
I agree. There's some very interesting episodes approaching. So stay tuned.
Awesome.
Would you ever play another game?
Oh hell yeah. You know, if I'm so fortunate to come back, I would absolutely love to.
Well, I definitely like my returning seasons. It probably won't happen anytime soon, but one of these days I'll definitely be approaching you probably.
Well, if that's the case, I definitely look forward to it.
What's the biggest lesson you learned as a player?
Even in a game of alliances and backstabbing and everything like that, it's always good to keep what friends you can make. Um, Even if you do have to keep them at a distance in a somewhat healthy way. But no matter what happens, at the end of the day, so long as you're having fun, um, definitely one thing is I'm not gonna be as uptight as I was, you know, and that's a very clear difference between the two teams, especially early on. We were just like I don't think we ever got that opportunity to just cut loose and just kind of enjoy the game for what it was.
What do you think that was? There was just too much tension?
I don't know. you know, I to say that it's just a game is kind of an understatement, but it is a good opportunity to learn about a lot of different other people and even build those connections, hopefully for after the games are all done. Um, and like I had mentioned before, you know, I was so lucky. These were some great people. We're cutting up. We're laughing at each other and ourselves.
Well, I'm glad y'all are having a good time after the fact. I think it is definitely a good season. Lots of good gameplay to come as well. So,
Oh, I definitely look forward to watching it.
all right, that is all for now. Thank you, Typhon, for joining me.